So, for this retrospective, I decided to just kind of sit here in the sound player and let the game play through the soundtrack. So, as I said, this is my final stream, and I would like to spend the second half of this stream just kind of reminiscing about my 9 years of streaming. I don't know if I'm going to include this as part of my Mario RPG playthrough, although we are still technically in Mario RPG, so I don't know. But just in case, I will once again link this document full of all the playthroughs I've streamed over the years. I'm going to be talking about some of those. First things first, Super Mario RPG, the Remake. My final streamed playthrough. All things considered, I couldn't end on a more perfect playthrough. The original Mario RPG was my very first RPG. If not for that game, who knows, maybe I would have never been able to get into RPGs. Either that or my introduction would have been Pokemon. But imagine though if Pokemon was my introduction to RPGs. I may not be able to appreciate some of the RPG aspects as I do now. First things first, I probably should once again explain why I'm ending my streams, and go into better detail. To clarify before anything, I'm not going to give up content creation. Next year, once I finish editing a few more of my past streams, I'm going to make regular Let's Plays at YouTube. It's just streaming specifically that I'm going to give up on. And the reasoning, as I said before, a lack of time and energy, but going into more detail, the energy part is obvious. I don't really have the endurance to stream so much anymore. As for time, first things first, I put off my job hunt so that I could finish this playthrough without having to worry about that interrupting my schedule. But now that this playthrough is coming to an end, I'm gonna go back to the job hunt, and I don't know what my schedule will be. Probably would be at work during my usual stream time, but besides that, I would probably only have 1 or 2 days off each week. And if I'm streaming, or if I only have 2 days off, I'm not going to want to stream both days. I'm going to want to relax one of those days. And if I only have 1 day off, well heck, as I said, I need a day to relax. And even if I could stream once a week, I've learned through experience last year then that once a week is not enough. I need to be able to record frequently so that I can kind of keep the playthroughs fresh in mind. I'm definitely glad this playlist moves on to the next song automatically. I wonder how far into this soundtrack we'll get before we end. Another reason why I'm going to be switching to regular Let's Plays is because, well, looking at my second channel at YouTube, I have 22 unedited playthroughs on my second YouTube channel. That is because I stream a lot more content than I am able to edit. I'm only able to edit 5 half-hour episodes each week, but I streamed way more content than that. There's a bunch of playthroughs that I was really wanting to edit and put in the spotlight, but I couldn't because I wound up streaming some other playthroughs that I decided to edit and put in the spotlight. So doing regular Let's Plays means that whatever I'm doing goes straight to the spotlight, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. With that said, back to the situation, back to this list. Let's look at this list. I have I'm gonna need to do this from time to time to stop the screen burn. I have streamed... Oh, I didn't count how many playthroughs this is, but definitely at least 100 playthroughs. That's just streaming. I've done a bunch of regular Let's Plays besides, so I've definitely got... I've done a lot of games over the years. My very first streamed playthrough, Sonic Classic Heroes, a ROM hack of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, where you played not only as Sonic, but as a team with Tails and Knuckles. I'm not really sure the specific reason why I chose that to be my first stream playthrough, but it was definitely a fun one. It was interesting the little changes it made, plus the ability to play as Tails and Knuckles in Sonic 1 and 2. Tails is my favorite Sonic character, so that alone was pretty nice. I want to see that was entirely streamed in one stream as well. And then I further edited it into episodes. I'm not going to talk about every one of these games on this list because I don't think I have the time for that. Also, yeah, this list does technically show numbers up to 111. The first entry doesn't count because that's just the form titles. There's also a triple entry in here, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, which I guess I might as well talk about that. That's skipping ahead quite a ways. First playthrough way back, first streamed playthrough way back in February 2015, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon was basically all of 2020, just about. But, on this list, that counts for 3 entries, because I had so many videos in the Twitch playlist, and Twitch only allows up to 100 videos in a playlist. And that playthrough was like 205 videos. And my gosh, what a long playthrough. What a freaking long playthrough. That took me 9 months to get through. Edited at YouTube after trimming out a lot of filler, and I mean a lot of filler. That was 187 Let's Play episodes. I don't know exactly how long Pokemon Legends is going to be yet once I get that edited, but currently Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, my longest playthrough so far. But it was definitely kind of a special one, playing as a Cubone. Did not expect to play as a Cubone, I just let the game pick for me, and being a Cubone was definitely pretty nice. Definitely felt a personal connection to the game world, as well as to my partner Pokemon, Catfish the Meowth. Waylon says, I'm sorry, but most of the PMD postgame felt like it really wasn't worth it. I'm actually inclined to agree. I remember the postgame being better than it was, because there were some standout moments. Some interesting boss fights, the situation with Gengar. But otherwise, there was a lot more filler than I remember. Just dungeon crawl, with little to no story. So... I still think it was worth doing the post-game, if only for the sake of getting the conclusion with Gengar, but otherwise, definitely like 90% filler. Oh, my original playthrough of Mario RPG. Okay, first things first, I keep calling it my original playthrough. Kinda, sorta not. My original playthrough would be the Mario RPG Revolution ROM hack that I Let's Played at YouTube. Not streamed, it was a regular Let's Play, and Oh boy, that was rough. That was definitely a rough playthrough. That is the definition of ROM hack difficulty. I have learned over the years, I am not a fan of ROM hack difficulty. It's just a chore. And then early in my years here at Twitch, when I started streaming at Twitch, started streaming at YouTube, moved to Twitch, but early on I actually attempted a playthrough of Mario RPG, but viewership was minimal. It's not that I had no viewership, but it just didn't seem like there was enough interest in the playthrough, so I kind of gave up on it, and eventually tried it again in 2020. And I'm definitely glad that I waited to try it again, because my 2020 playthrough of Mario RPG, definitely one of my favorite playthroughs. I'm not sure if it's my absolute favorite streamed playthrough, but it's definitely up there. That playthrough to me, near perfection. I did just about everything I wanted to do with that playthrough, showing off, like, how to word this. Peach and Gino was not necessarily the definitive team. Mallow is useful. Yoshi is useful. And then, even after streaming it, the bonus content I recorded specifically for YouTube, going into the, cannot think words, debug mode, that was really fun. For that reason, I think I actually like my original playthrough of Mario RPG more than this one. Though this one was definitely special, seeing all the changes to Remake, getting to experience the game for the first time. There was definitely that first time experience with this game that I really missed from playing the original Mario RPG, because I played the original to death. It just wasn't that special to play anymore. Outside of the streaming it. Definitely enjoyed streaming it. Looking over the list some more. Oh boy, speaking of early days of Twitch. Early days of Twitch were interesting. Early on at Twitch, I was still taking Patreon requests, so on occasion, I would have some Patreon streams requested. For example, Mischief Makers. Offhand, I'm not really sure whether that was the first game I streamed here at Twitch, but it's the first playthrough at Twitch that still exists. And for the record, I hate Mischief Makers. I know it's kind of a cult classic, but my gosh, that game gets obnoxiously difficult. And it's not even worth playing, because you don't even get the full ending unless you go for 100%. You see, the way it works is throughout the game there's these yellow crystals that are hidden throughout each level. Some of them you have to perform certain tasks in order to find. And how much of the ending you can see depends on how many of the yellow crystals you get. Through the ending, your yellow crystal countdowns, and as soon as you run out of yellow crystals, the ending just stops. No matter where it is in the ending will just stop once you run out of yellow crystals. That is stupid and not worth it because they're obnoxious to collect, and therefore the game is not worth playing. In my humble opinion. But there were also some other Patreon requests that I ultimately did not save. Somebody requested that I play Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, and that game is stressful. There was also this thing called Super Mario Bros. X. Make a good level context X1. And that was basically, I think there's a fan game editor out there called Super Mario Bros. X, I think. But there was a contest for people to make levels with that Mario game editor. And it was a fan game of fan games, kind of, where you would go around this ship, and inside each tier of a ship were levels of various rankings. The levels that were bad were on the lowest tier, and the best levels were on the best tier. Never really made it through that. Some of the levels in that were definitely obnoxious. And it was definitely a Mario fan game sort of thing, because definitely not Mario physics. I've linked to all of the playthroughs in this list of playthroughs, by the way, so if you're interested in looking at any of these, they're there. With the exception of Kingdom Hearts 2. That is a playthrough, one of many playthroughs that I wound up abandoning. I can't really remember the reason for it, but I didn't really make it all the way through. I can't remember how far I made it in. I want to say to at least the Hercules level, but didn't continue playing it, and I didn't keep the playthrough playlist. It's just gone. It's just straight up gone. Waylon says, might have been too busy. It might have been the case. There were plenty of times throughout my journey as a Let's Player and streamer where I just took on too much work. Too many Let's Plays. Someday I would not mind revisiting Kingdom Hearts 2. I don't know if it'll be the PlayStation 2 version like I did originally, or if I'm gonna play it on Steam. Is it on Steam yet? If not, I'm sure it will be eventually. But I definitely want to actually finish that one, because it is an interesting game. See how the game stands out on its own as well. I'm curious whether the game can be enjoyed without the context of the entire story. Maddie says, Blazing Dragons, that was a special one for me. Blazing Dragons was the first long play I ever watched. I stumbled upon it while looking for Let's Plays, so seeing one of my favorite streamers play it was great. Yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun with Blazing Dragons. An interesting PlayStation point-and-click adventure where you play as a Dragon Tar in a world full of Dragon Tars. Very interesting. It's definitely one of the easier point-and-click adventure games. I got lost in it, but the solutions were not as obscure as you might see. It just occurred to me that this entire time we were playing the music in classic mode rather than the remake version. So I guess we're gonna continue listening to the classic soundtrack. I mean, we've already listened to the modern soundtrack throughout the playthrough, so, okay. But yeah, Blazing Dragons, definitely interesting. Raylan says, I told you this is very fitting for a retrospective. As I said a stream or two ago, it's not necessarily impossible to keep up with the chat, as it would be if I were like a popular air quote streamer, but sometimes it is a little tricky for me to keep track of every message. So just as well that I'm ending my streams, because sometimes I miss messages, and it's obvious when I miss messages. But yeah, it is kind of fitting that we go with a classic choice for this retrospective. After all, it is a retrospective. Maddie says, gotta hop out, but again, thanks, Kat. It's, as always, so appreciated. You take care, and thank you so much. Definitely thank you, Maddie. You were one of my first regulars here, so, that's pretty cool. If I had not switched from YouTube to Twitch, who knows, you might have never been able to be a fan. That said, speaking of popularity, I started my streams at Twitch, or at YouTube. I started my streams at YouTube because I was a YouTuber first. Eventually started streaming at Twitch because that was basically what what all the cool kids was doing. I tell you what, moving to Twitch, I struggled to get some viewership here. At YouTube, I had all of my YouTube viewers that I had at the time. At Twitch, I was basically starting from scratch almost. There were so many streams where I had, like, no viewers at all. Which was depressing, but I kept at it, and I can say, as I said before, I feel like I've done it. I feel like I've become successful at Twitch. Even if not from a monetary aspect, I have people coming to my Twitch streams. I have an active chat. It's been really nice. Oh boy, there's a game on this list called Corporal Buggy Bear. That was one of my early streams. I think I briefly had a VR during that stream, but it was not an active stream. Corporal Buggy Bear is a random RPG Maker XP game I decided to play, and it's a silly game. It is not at all a serious game. It's not poorly made, it's just silly. Maybe sometime I could revisit that, see how it ends, because I only did one stream, didn't play the whole thing. Final Fantasy V for Job Fiesta. I played Final Fantasy V for a popular charity event, where you were limited to a randomizer which of the many job classes you could use during the adventure. I got really lucky with the randomizer. I wound up with some of the best job classes in that game, with the exception of the final job class, which was just a repeat of a job class I already had. So I wound up donating some money in order to get a different job class, and I chose a job class that I knew what I would like. But I don't know specifically which of my stream playthroughs would be my favorite, but if not my original Mario RPG playthrough, it would probably be Final Fantasy V, because that was also my first time actually beating that game. And Final Fantasy V is totally underrated. It gets overshadowed by Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI. But Final Fantasy V, even if the story is not entirely serious at sometimes, I genuinely think it is a really good story. It might not get as deep as Final Fantasy IV and VI, but still a really good story. And oh my gosh, the ending of that playthrough, the final battle, that was a final blow, I tell you what. That was something. Wyland says, you gotta talk about the RM1 creation series. That was really great. Gave me inspirations to make my own RM1 game. And while that game never got finished, me and Cindy Losty do have plans for a new game. Yes, indeed. For my 10th anniversary of Let's Playing in October of... Where is that on the list? 2018, I decided to do a creation series of RPG Maker 1 on the first PlayStation. It was my first RPG Maker. Except not really, I actually got into RPG Maker thanks to pirating RPG Maker 2000. But it was... RPG Maker 1 on the PlayStation was my first legit RPG Maker. And for my 10th anniversary series, I decided to make a game with it live. And I will say I probably could have handled that better. There was a whole lot of making it up as I went along. So there were some portions of that Maker series that felt a little disjointed. But still, I think I did a decent job showing what it's like to make a game with that, and I did in fact make a game with it. It was not like a serious game, it was just a 2.5 dungeon game with a silly bare-bones plot. But I did include a custom boss fight and a secret character, so that was still pretty neat. And followed that up with a playthrough of RPG Maker's sample game, Gobbly, which is, out of all the sample games we got, definitely the best of the sample games. A little grindy, especially in the castle, but still a decent little sample game, and a very original story, starring a goblin who wants to become a boss, instead of just cannon fodder for the heroes. Very cute story, very memorable. I would have liked to have eventually gotten around to creation series for RPG Maker 2 and 3, but I don't have as much experience for those. And the sample games that come with them kind of suck anyway. Though eventually I am going to Let's Play these sample games. Whether that will be as part of new creation series or not, I don't know. Yeah, a shock is part of the soundtrack. That stinger when you find out that Mallow is not a tadpole. Yeah, I am working on an RPG Maker game 2 right now. Maybe by the time I finish this game, crossing my fingers, knocking on wood, I'll have enough experience with RPG Maker 2 to make a creation series. That said, for as powerful as RPG Maker 2 is, my gosh, it is complicated. There's some commands in there that basically had to reverse engineer in some sample scripts in order to figure out what they do. I mean, RPG Maker 2 doesn't require programming. You're not actually programming, you're just selecting commands from a menu. But programming experience definitely helps with that one. If I do a creation series with RPG Maker 2, I am definitely going to want to pre-plan that one. Sam and Max, the Telltale point-and-click games. I played all 3 seasons, and that was really fun. Not necessarily the first time I played point-and-click adventure games, but it would have been the first time I played a point-and-click adventure game since probably when I was in grade school. And Sam and Max was gifted to me. Oh, I forgot to write down who it was that gifted to me. I think it was Theo Vellum, but don't quote me on that one. It was also kind of a Patreon request when I was still doing Patreon games. I think it was gifted to me and a Patreon request, but I had to give up Patreon requests because it was just too much work for me, just playing whatever people want on a whim. But I eventually returned to the game in 2018, played through all 3 seasons, and definitely had a fun time with that. It got me kind of into point-and-click adventure games again. Not that I played that many. Besides that one, I also played, Blazing Dragons, of course. Off-camera, I also played a point-and-click game called Mechanarium, I think it's called. That was a fun one. I wouldn't mind playing another point-and-click game for you all. Oh, there was also a Patreon request that was on the Super Nintendo. Clock Tower, that was another point-and-click game. Didn't do a 100% playthrough of that one. That game has multiple endings. I got a decent ending, but didn't put in the effort to, like, get the best ending. Speaking of Sam and Max... Okay, so... Twitch has this handy feature where you can export streams and highlights directly to YouTube, and I took advantage of that to a fault. Rather than edit my playthroughs, I just trimmed them and dumped them over at YouTube, which was a mistake in playthroughs like Sam and Max because there were points where I got lost, and you all had to sit through me being lost, even at YouTube. There was one episode of Sam and Max that I spent almost the entirety of the episode being lost, making zero progress. Over the past year, I went back to Season 1 and 2 of Sam and Max and actually took the time to edit them so they are much more watchable. Have not gotten around to Season 3 yet, planning to do that eventually. Oh boy, there's a random stream of Super Mario World. I did a 100% stream of Super Mario World, 6 hours. No idea how I managed to do that. Nor do I have any idea why I did that. There's some games that I did back in the day that's just kind of were just random. Like at YouTube, I did a stream of The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Not necessarily a playthrough, more just as a celebration because, hey guys, did you know? I 100% The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. And so I just did a celebration stream for it. There was also a regular Let's Play episode I did of Don't Shoot the Puppy, which was a flash game where you had to basically do nothing, because if you did anything, even move your mouse cursor, the puppy got blown up. So that was a random Let's Play. Yeah, I guess it was a trending flash game at the time. Though I'm not sure if it was trending by the time I got to it. Don't know. YouTube Days of Streaming. I did this thing called Game Boy Wednesdays. I had a lot of fun with that. So basically, every Wednesday, I would stream a Game Boy game, a Super Game Boy game, and a Game Boy Color game, half hour each. And at the end of the stream, I would allow everyone who watched to vote for which of those 3 games I would continue streaming the next week. Whatever game won, I would continue streaming, and the other 2 games would be replaced by 2 new games. Starting out, oh boy. So, at the time, I did not have very much viewership at YouTube for my streams, which was an issue, because that meant that there were a lot of ties. And alongside that, one of the first games that I streamed for that was Mole Mania for the Game Boy. A really good game, And so good that it kept winning for like 10 streams in a row. And the people who didn't want to see Mole Mania for 10 streams in a row got a little frustrated with that. So, Mole Mania won a lot. There were a lot of ties, even after Mole Mania finally got outvoted. Oh, there was another game. I can't remember what the game was called, but there was a game by HAL Labs where you played as this little ball tank. The game doesn't offer a lot of content. I basically beat it in one 30-minute period, but there was also a multiplayer mode that you could play in single player, and the game got voted to come back, so I played the multiplayer mode, and it was boring. It was not a worthwhile return. Regardless, I definitely had a lot of fun doing Game Boy Wednesdays. Gave it up because eventually even I got tired of all the ties. I decided maybe I'll come back to Game Boy Wednesdays someday when I have more viewership and there's less likely to be ties. I don't think I've really reached that point. But still, I have fond memories of Game Boy Wednesdays. There was an RPG Maker game I did at YouTube called Wilbur the Game, made by the same person who did the Earthling-hating Mammonians, which I streamed here at Twitch. The credits of that game were kind of ridiculous. It was basically like a regular credit sequence but I had to manually press a button for each credit, and each credit was just the game developer over and over again. And I read the credits out loud. This credit by the game developer. This credit by the game developer. This credit by the game developer. And at the time I thought I was being funny, but in hindsight, kind of annoying. I will say, after 9 years of streaming, I may not be perfect, I may not be the best streamer, but I can definitely say I'm a lot better than I was 9 years ago. Waylon says Cat Trap was fun because it got voted again. You got to play levels that I made with the level editor. Oh yeah, Cat Trap. That was one of the games I did within Game Boy Wednesdays. It's a very interesting game. It is a puzzle game where... It's a turn-based puzzle game. Each move you make, the game keeps track of. Your goal is to hip bash all the enemies off the screen, and there is a rewind button, so if you made a mistake, you could rewind. Very interesting game, and as Ryan points out, it had a level editor. And for the return of that game, I allowed people to make their games and send them to me, because your levels you could save using a password. And just send me the password, and I was able to play the custom levels. So that was a fun one. Oh boy. The Game of Life. That was a Patreon request by Wirelango Pyramid. Fun stream. Basically me against the chat. And I am bummed that Twitch did not save the chat. Raylan says, first half was more fun than the second half. Was it? I don't remember. I don't really remember it that well. Oh, wait. first half, I'm pretty sure I did the special game PlayStation rules, because I played it on the PlayStation, by the way, therefore it has some special rules. I think in the second half I played using normal rules. If that's the case, then yeah, that would have been a little less interesting. Oh gosh. Hippie Hunt 2. A game created with RPG Maker 2 that very nearly got me banned. Because that game has a chibi sex scene. Yeah, I can't remember whether I edited that at YouTube or Twitch, but I did edit that, covered up the screen so you couldn't see it. Because, yeah, it's chibi graphics, but it's still a sex scene. The less said, the better. I still have the playthrough here at Twitch and at YouTube, so if you want to go looking for it, feel free to. The playthrough overall is a raunchy one. A very impressive RPG Maker game, at least in regards to the cutscenes. The battles were bad. The cutscenes were impressive. But my gosh, what a game. Snake Pass. That's a good game. An indie game that released on various platforms, including Nintendo Switch. I should not have streamed that. It's a really good game, a really difficult game. It basically has snake physics. Not a very popular game because the snake physics took some getting used to, and it took me a while to get used to them. But I still really enjoyed that game. That's one of my favorite games that I did. Just one of my favorite indie games, period. It was really neat just trying to get into the mindset of playing as a snake with snake controls. So why do I regret streaming it? Because my internet threw up all over it. A very pretty game, but the stream quality, bad. The game is very detailed, and my internet just did not know what to do with all that detail. I should have waited until I had better internet. Okay, Gaiken. Gaiken is a game that I need to mention. That is, to date, my absolute favorite RPG Maker game. I made that, it is a game on RPG Maker Ace, or RPG Maker VX Ace. Kind of an action-y game with leveling up, and you get different weapons, and each of the different weapons plays differently, which is really neat. And the story was really good. It's a very impressive story. And admittedly, one of the things that I really liked about my playthrough was editing for YouTube. Because I was starting to kind of get back into editing properly, and there were some great moments for cliffhangers, for two-parters. But yeah, as Ryan Light is pointing out, the one complaint that I have for the game, no name boxes. If you couldn't remember who a character was, sucks to be you. Oh yeah, by the way, that game has multiple endings. I won't say which ending I got because maybe you all want to see that, and well, I do recommend watching that one, especially if you're watching it at YouTube. Let's see here. Undertale. Wireland mentioned Undertale. No, I won't talk about spoilers with Undertale. I did that playthrough at YouTube for Sir Rosser. In exchange, Sir Rosser would play Final Fantasy Legend 3 on the Game Boy, which in my opinion is the best RPG on the Game Boy after Pokemon. And Undertale was an experience. I won't go into details. Aside from one particular detail, it was by far my most popular stream at YouTube, but not necessarily in a good way. You see, what happened was I wound up being raided by a bunch of Undertale role players. So I had like Sans making jokes in my chat. It was kind of a messy chat. I mean, I didn't mind it at the time, but that chat was a mess. Very special playthrough though. I did eventually go on a pacifist run. There's a few playthroughs on this list that were just demos. Like The Lost for RPG Maker MV, that was a demo. I assume that game has been finished by now, but I never heard from the game creator since finishing The Lost. So, never got around to playing the finished game. SD Paradise is an RPG Maker 2 demo that I revisited. I can say for certain that game never got finished. Astrologia Episode 1. Not an RPG Maker game, but an episodic game. And the game creator asked me to play Episode 1. Since then, the rest of Astrologia has been finished. You can get the entirety, all 5 or 6 episodes, I think, of Astrologia is available on Steam. And technically speaking, I did hear back from that game developer. They asked me if I would be willing to play the rest of the episodes. But I never heard from them back after that, so I never got a hold of the remaining episodes, so, never mind. Framed Wings. Framed Wings is an interesting one. An RPG Maker XP game, also an action game, very good one. I streamed that here at Twitch, and because of how I'm just flat out unable to get to every playthrough, because I stream more than I would be editing, it took me a while to get around to editing Framed Wings for YouTube. And I found out since my Twitch playthrough, the game has been updated a lot. Like, some of the locations just got straight up redesigned. So I decided to, instead of posting my Twitch playthrough, I just decided to record it from scratch, specifically for YouTube. So YouTube has a very different playthrough than here at Twitch. The story and beats are the same, although there is an additional final boss that I have mixed feelings about. But if you have not watched either playthrough, check them out. I think it's worth watching both playthroughs. And there's another playthrough I redid at YouTube. Odette's Magical Menagerie, which was made for RPG Maker VX Ace. A very interesting game. Imagine Game Boy Zelda, but without the fighting. And it is starring a witch who allowed herself to be turned into an anthropomorphic skunk. And she is protecting a cursed garden, and any trespassers get turned into animals. I definitely enjoyed that game, but it was not optimized at all. There were various locations in the game where the frame rate tanked. So when I decided to edit that playthrough for YouTube, I decided to redo most of it. I used the same opening that I did at Twitch, but the rest of it I replayed because some of it got updated better. Plus, when I played it at Twitch, there was a game-breaking glitch, and I did not want to include that at YouTube, so I replayed it so that that game-breaking glitch would not be present at YouTube. And overall, I think as a result, my YouTube playthrough of the game is the better playthrough to watch. There's still some moments where there's some tinking frame rate, but by the time I got around to editing it for YouTube, I was able to identify why the frame rate tinked in certain places, which doesn't necessarily make it better, but at the very least, you don't look at it and think, wow, this is garbage. For anybody wondering, the frame rate was tinking because there is a lighting script that was being used so that any torches that would be lit, it would actually light up the area around the torches, and certain maps just had too many of those torches. Okay, getting in a little bit of a depressing territory. 2022. Without getting into specifics, because real life, that was a point where it became apparent that I wouldn't be able to keep up my old streaming schedule of 3 times a week, and in fact, I had to give up streaming for a time. And the last playthrough I was working on at the time was Pokemon Emerald. And sadly, I was not able to finish that game. My decision to end my streams was kind of forced, and so I just had to stop after the third gym of Pokemon Emerald. Someday at YouTube, I would like to return to that game, finish it properly. I don't know when. Next year, Pokemon Legends 2 is going to release. No promises that I'll get around to Let's Playing Pokemon Legends 2 when it releases. I've got some catching up to do with other playthroughs I've been waiting to do. But all eyes are going to be on Legends 2, so I don't know that next year is going to be a good year to play Pokemon Emerald. And then came the end of Oasis. Last year, 2023, I decided to make an attempt to return to streaming, only streaming once per week, so that I could stream some developer requests while also editing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for YouTube. That was a mistake. I should have just continued putting Pokemon Mystery Dungeon on hold so that I could Let's Play these developer requests instead. Let's Playing them, I would have had a much easier time with them. And besides, I'm editing them for YouTube anyway. And by the time I got through with Oasis, I was burnt out. That was not a good final stream. So, here we are, 2024, Super Mario RPG Remake. I come back to streaming. I currently have the time to stream, and most of the energy I need. Mostly. There were a few streams during this playthrough where I was trying too hard to make it as good as my original playthrough, but once I stopped doing that and just went with the flow, I had a much easier time. And like I said, this playthrough, definitely a good way to end my streamings. Had a much better time with this. This is a great way to end the stream, as opposed to the end of Pokemon Emerald, which I was forced to abandon, or Oasis, which had Burnout. And by the way, I did eventually get around to doing New Game Plus for Oasis at YouTube, and that turned out to be a lot more interesting. So if you haven't seen New Game Plus of Oasis at YouTube, definitely head over to my YouTube channel, check that out. Oh boy, there's definitely some playthroughs on this list that I have not edited yet that I would love to get around to editing. Like Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. Heck, it'd be easier to open my Overflow channel and look through that list. Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, one of my favorite playthroughs I've done, so it's going to be the first playthrough I edit at YouTube next year. And the last previously streamed playthrough that I spotlight. Any other playthroughs that I edit from there from Twitch will be quietly edited. Ghost of a Tale, really enjoyed that playthrough. It is a indie game in which you play as a mouse, but kind of anthropomorphized, but not like furry, but more like still having mouse proportions, and trying to escape a prison run by rats. It was a stealth game, and oh my gosh, the lore in that game was so interesting. That wound up being another of my favorite indie games. Pokemon Legends Arceus, I'm currently in the process of editing that quietly. Blazing Dragons would be a good one to edit. Goblin Sword, that is an interesting one. A very simple game. It's basically a cell phone game on Switch. You're going through levels, trying to find some prizes here and there, but your main goal is to just beat the levels. No story outside of the opening. But I want to edit it. I want to edit that one because it needs editing. Because I was going for 100%, which means replaying through the entire levels. It's one of those games where if you find the missing collectible in a level you already beat, you still have to beat the level again. If you exit the level, you lose the thing you just collected. I've already proven I can beat that level, but too bad, gotta play through the whole level for it to count. And I'm just very curious to find out how much I can edit out because of that. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, as I said before, I love that game. I definitely would like to edit that sometime. In fact, I started my Overflow channel because of that game. I knew I wouldn't get around to editing it, so it's like, heck, if I can't put it, spotlight it on my main channel, I'm gonna dump it on my Overflow channel. That way people can still enjoy it. Not many people still enjoyed it. My Overflow channel did not get much viewership. Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom was a good one. A Metroidvania with transformation themes. Your very first transformation is a pig. besides Fate, a visual novel, and one of those visual novels that will gut punch you. But it's also pretty interesting. It is a furry game with transformation being a central theme. And, I'm not sure what happened to the game, but there's these portions of game that have voice acting, and some of the voice acting volume was turned really low for some reason. So I would like to edit that and re-record some of the voice acting so that it's actually audible. Otherwise, a pretty interesting game. I did 2 run-throughs of that. I did the normal run, and then I did the run through the DLC, which had a very alternate story. And there's other details I would love to talk about that game, but that would be spoiler territory, so I won't. I also wouldn't mind editing Warrior Land 4. That was a fun game. Kind of failed at the end, could not get the best ending, but still a fun game. And even though the game of life is not as enjoyable to watch without the Twitch chat, I still wouldn't mind editing that simply because there is a lot of waiting around for the Twitch chat. Back to Pokemon Legends Arceus. Warringline says, Arceus was a wonderful playthrough. You really made it your own. You made it personal. And it had a lasting impact because me and Cindy Lusty still have our Pokesonas from that game as our Discord avatars. Yes, I did notice that. I'm not too far into editing that at the moment. I think I've edited up to episode 20. Have not uploaded that yet. Have not reached the point where I caught either of you. But yeah, that was definitely a fun playthrough. I did not focus entirely on the story. I had a lot of fun just going out and exploring and catching Pokemon and training Pokemon. There were some Pokemon I got to train that I've never trained before. For example, Chimchar and Evolving Chimchar. Never actually trained one. That was a great Pokemon to train. Warrior Land, you were a great Pokemon to train. Oh boy, last year, 2023. Want to talk about it being a bad idea to try to return to streaming? Monstronium is a good example of that. Because I was only streaming once per week, I had concerns about all the developer requests that I get every year, because I would get basically almost guaranteed 3 developer requests each year. Some of them demos, so it's like, okay, if I don't have as much time to stream all of these, maybe I could put a time limit on the demos. I would give the demos 2 streams. As it turns out, Monstronium wound up being the only demo I streamed last year, but I did in fact only stream it for 2 streams. And I kind of regret it. I would have... In hindsight, I wish I had played the entire demo. Probably only needed 1 more stream. So, to make up for it, I promised the game developer that when the game is done, I'm going to just stream the entire finished game instead. But had I Let's Played it, I don't feel like I would have been as pressured to give myself a time limit, because it was streaming once a week versus 5 Let's Play episodes a week. Streaming once a week, it's like an entire week goes by without me making progress. That is the issue. making regular Let's Play 5 days a week, I'm making a progress 5 days a week. So, definitely regret not just Let's Playing these games last year instead of streaming them. And yes, an entire week to forget details. I'm currently in the process of posting Mana Finder, which I streamed last year. I'm editing that for YouTube, and wow. Just wow. So, there's some lore in the game about a forbidden goddess, and I misinterpreted part of the story. Without going into details, I thought the bad guys were trying to revive a forbidden goddess, which is absolutely not the case. The goddess doesn't need reviving, she's already around. But I started one stream talking about how we need to stop the bad guys from reviving this dark goddess. Because it had been a week since my last stream, and I forgot the details. So that's another reason why I'm going to be glad to doing regular Let's Plays. I'm going to record for 30 minutes, immediately edit it as a refresher, and next time I record, okay, I had a refresher of what's going on. Because when it comes to streaming, I don't have time to go back and rewatch my streams. There was this one time I attempted to do that. There were 2 months in... oh, I can't remember what year it was. But I decided to try to keep up with my Twitch channel. This was a time when I was streaming 4 times a week. So what I decided to do is edit 4 streams a week. The equivalent of 16 Let's Play episodes. Oh my gosh. That was a bad idea. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. Ryan points out the game didn't play customizable Tudovsky song in the soundtrack menu. It just left the customizable portion blank. I'm disappointed, that would have been awesome. Yeah, that would have been nice. Well, at the very least, it's easy enough to come back to Tudovsky and just replay the song with him. And it is interesting to hear the song blank. Oh boy, one of my favorite playthroughs, Kirby's Dream Land and Super Mario Land 2. Those were my very first Game Boy games that I got for my birthday way back in 19... But to do something special for those, I played some Game Boy Color ROM hacks for those. And it was really interesting revisiting those Game Boy Color those black and white Game Boy games in color. Very neat. Although, the last stream of Super Mario Land 2... I'm not sure what happened. My S's. Anytime I said an S, it sounded like... It's kind of like that. And it was obnoxious. So I wound up re-recording the last few areas of Super Mario Land 2 when I edited it for YouTube. Because, oof. And I also tried to record it as though it was part of the stream. I rewatched the portions... I rewatched that part of the stream, made note of what certain chatters said during the part of the streams. And so, whenever I reached that point in the re-recordings, I acted like I was responding to those chat messages. Royalin says, I don't remember noticing any re-records, so I guess you did a good job there. You fooled me completely. Well, I'm glad for that. What's another good one? Juji's Journey was kind of a special one. Maddie mentioned that earlier in the stream. The start of 2022, I did 3 indie games. I was in the mood to do some random indie games, and I did Macbeth 64, Juji's Journey, and The Adventures of Ravi and Navi. Macbeth 64 is basically an homage to the 90s. You probably wouldn't enjoy it unless you've lived through the 90s like I did, but it was a very interesting game. Juji's Journey, an adorable indie game about a rabbit who wished to lose her memory, and her wish came true. And The Adventures of Ravi and Navi is rough. It's not a bad game. It is a college student game. To my understanding, it was made for a college competition in Japan. And it's very much inspired by Donkey Kong 64 to a fault. I mean, it doesn't quite get into Colored Bananas territory, but there were a few minigames that were definitely Donkey Kong 64 minigames, and oh my gosh, those were insanely difficult. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it was a bad game. I actually enjoyed it a lot. It's also a very unknown game. To date, I think my playthrough is the only playthrough of that game. Oh boy, at this rate, you think we're going to make it all the way to, the end of, the playlist here? I probably don't want to reach the end of the playlist, actually. We're how far into this stream? 2 hours and 12 minutes. So my video editor crashes if I try editing a stream that is of a certain length. So I am going to want to end the stream here real soon. So, quick ones. Arc Aerith was nice to revisit that game, play through the whole thing. Very impressive RPG Maker game, very wordy RPG Maker game, but I'm glad that I got to put that game in the spotlight. And it got some decent viewership both here at Twitch and at YouTube. Siren's Reef was a very interesting RPG Maker game for RPG Maker 3. Kind of a visual novel, kind of not. It was fun doing a behind-the-scenes look at that one. Fufu, oh boy, let's talk about real life a bit. So, a subject that I know will make some folks uncomfortable, but you're listening to me right now. I am transgendered. For a long time, I was in the closet. And to remain in the closet, I decided to do this thing where I was a pair of twins. Here at Twitch and YouTube, I would be Dragon, and on like chat accounts where I could be myself without revealing my true self, I was Erika. And that kind of flowed into my streams where I would frequently talk about my twin sister. And Fufu is one of those games where I made that discussion. Talked about how I had a twin sister and she used my brief persona of a rabbit girl or something like that. And there was another playthrough where my twin sister lore was heavily featured, that being Pokemon Yellow, where I was a Nidoran, and I also had my twin sister be a Nidoran. I gotta admit, for me personally, it's kind of cringe to go back to those playthroughs because, oh my gosh, my lie was so blatant. Sunday, I want to revisit Gen 1. I want to just kind of bury my Pokemon Yellow playthrough and do Pokemon Blue. And I want to do Pokemon Blue with a special challenge, just to make it interesting. I want to do a Poison-type run, where I use nothing but Poison-type Pokemon. That'll be fun. Not sure when I'll get around to it, but that'll be fun. Ryan says Super Mario Bros. Was unique compared to usual LPs of that game. Oh yeah, I kind of had fun with that one. It was the NES version, but I did this thing where I played through the whole game the first time, then I went through New Game Plus, which is basically hard mode, where I showed off some of the sub-areas to make things interesting. I also showed off one of the warps. And then in the end, I did Minus World, so that was fun. Wario Land says, Wario Land 2 was special because you did it on Super Game Boy. Yeah, that's one of my favorite playthroughs, in part because I played it on the Super Game Boy. And oh boy, talking about putting my playthroughs, just dumping them on my Overflow channel. Something happened when I dumped that playthrough on my Overflow channel. There was some awful, just awful audio desync. There was a hiccup that put my commentary a full minute behind the footage. So, I eventually got around to editing that one as one of my quietly edited playthroughs, and I'm glad I did that. The game definitely has its frustrating moments. There's a particular enemy in that game I despise, but it was still really neat to play a legit Super Game Boy game that wasn't just Donkey Kong. And seeing all the different borders, all the different color schemes that the game went with. Very fun game. I will say, for a long time it was my favorite Wario Land game, but after playing through Wario Land 3 during my free time, I think I like that one more now. Maybe someday I'll get around to Let's Playing Wario Land 3. No promises it'll be anytime soon, though. Alright, final 5 minutes. Let's finish this up in 5 minutes. Any other games that come to mind on this list here? Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, like I said, I want to get that posted sometime, and I'm actually going to redo Donkey Kong Land 3 and Country, which I streamed at Twitch last year. Because I want to take Donkey Kong Land 3 in a different direction than I did. And Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Color, that was the point where Burnout was really getting to me. And you could tell I was being affected by Burnout at that point. Yes, Josh's Adventure, that was a YouTube stream. An RPG Maker platformer. Not much in the way of platforming because RPG Maker 1 doesn't do platformers, but Ice, who made the game, still made the platforming interesting with some fun little gimmicks and some comedy. Yeah, that was a really interesting game. TGI Super Mario Maker Fridays. I did in fact stream Super Mario Maker 1 when that released. I also streamed Super Mario Maker 2 here at Twitch when that released, though for a bad reason. I was trying to jump on the bandwagon in the hopes that it would get me popular. I did not get popular by doing Super Mario Maker 2, so that kind of soured my enjoyment. Regardless, I eventually did a birthday stream of that, and that was a really fun stream. I've quietly edited that stream, haven't posted it yet, but that was a really good stream. And it makes me want to do a Season 2 of Super Mario Maker 2. I don't know when, but maybe early next year as a Let's Play. I won't hinge on viewer requests as much as I tried to last time. I'm just gonna make up a bunch of different activities. Like Sunday, sometimes I'll do new levels, sometimes I might hunt down a troll level, sometimes I might do some online races. It'll be really fun. I definitely want to do it. Thomas Was Alone was a fun game indeed. Although, want to talk about another reason why I'm happy to give up streams? Audio balancing. Some of my streams, I failed to audio balance properly, and so what would happen is either the audio would be really loud or really quiet. If the audio is really quiet, that's not such a big deal, but when the audio was really loud, that was distracting. It is hard to start up a new playthrough and get the audio balancing right the first time. Super Mario Bros. 3 Advance was indeed really fun. One of my favorite Mario games. Got to do the main campaign as well as a blind playthrough, well, blind-ish, of the E-Raider levels. Did that game 100%. And as a bonus, exclusively to YouTube, I did online multiplayer with a group of friends over at Mac5. A racing channel that I am a part of. And doing that multiplayer was really fun. Some neat bonus content. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check that out. Waylon says the only problem were the time limits in the E-Raider levels. Yes, indeed. There were some levels that really shouldn't have had time limits, especially that Mario Metroidvania level. Really interesting, but oof. How close are we to the end of this? You know what? I'm gonna take a chance. Let's actually go to the end of this playlist. However, I will get some more water because my glass of water is emptied. Give me a moment. That's better. Tell you what, when I start recording regular Let's Plays, don't have to worry about thirst as much. I'll only be recording for a half hour or so at a time. Recently, by the way, I posted a video about 36 minutes long about a game I'm making for RPG Maker 2. I can tell you right now, just doing that video was already so much easier than streaming. And I had plenty to edit out. The original recording was an hour long. There was some stuff that I felt I didn't really explain too well or was overly complicated, so I just cut them out. But even recording just 1 hour, so easy. So I'm definitely looking forward to recording regular Let's Plays. Now, they're not all going to be that easy. Tell you what, recording the New Game Plus for Oasis, incredibly difficult. Because there was just so much skipping around, skipping forward, a couple of moments where I would skip backwards. And one issue I'm going to have to make sure to not have when I'm recording Let's Plays is being a perfectionist with my commentary. Because one thing I've noticed when recording just off-camera stuff is I flub my line. Crap, okay, let me just start over. Making regular Let's Plays, I'm not as encouraged to just roll with it as I am with streams. So I'm going to have to try not to be too much of a perfectionist when I make regular Let's Plays. At the same time, gonna be nice that I won't have to keep commentary going for 2 hours straight. If I'm in a random encounter that we've seen before, I can just not say anything and just edit out the battle. Simple. Streaming for 2 hours plus, keeping commentary the entire time. I said it before and I'll say it again. I don't know how anybody can do 6-hour, 8-hour streams. Current plans at YouTube. Just real quick, let's get into that. Currently, I am editing Mana Finder. That's a really interesting game. Was glad to stream that. Still wish I had recorded it as a regular Let's Play, but still a good playthrough. I talked to the game creator, and one thing I did not do during my streams is New Game Plus for that, because that game has 2 final chapters, completely different from each other depending on your decisions throughout the game. I stopped after just one of the final chapters, but I talked to the game creator, asked if they would like me to do the other final chapter, so yep, I'm going to be doing that. As soon as I'm done posting my original run of the game, I'm going to do New Game Plus for that, much like I did for Oasis. And then, as I said, next year, Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2 to start with, possibly immediately moving into Donkey Kong Land 3. Don't know if I'll move from there directly to Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color. That might be a bit too much Donkey Kong. Beyond that, don't know. Maybe going into Super Mario Maker 2. I also would like to do Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I have been trying my darndest to avoid any video clips or screenshots of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And let me tell you, it's been very difficult so far. If I wasn't ending my streams right now, I would probably do Super Mario Bros. Wonder next. But I really need to get a job, and I just don't see that working out. For Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I have a gimmick I would like to do for that playthrough, but I'll discuss that whenever we get there. I don't want it to just be a regular blind playthrough. I want to do something special with that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Hopefully next year. That being 2025. Wow. To think that I've been streaming for almost 10 years. For context, today is September 28th, 2024. I don't know the exact day I streamed Sonic Classic Heroes, but it was February 2015. So, 9.5 years. And that's not even counting all the years beforehand when I was just doing regular Let's Plays. My very first Let's Play was in October 2008. And then I took a bit of a break before actually starting my Let's Plays in, coincidentally, February 2009. So, Let's Plays and streams combined, 15 years. I've been making content for 15 years. And just a week or so away from my 16th anniversary, in fact. I have to wonder if there's any other Let's Players who have been doing it for this long. I can't imagine. Like, around the mag, I started Let's Playing because a bunch of other folks at RPGM Mag was doing Let's Plays, like Lantis and Shadow Fox and Ixion. I think Lantis still does some playthroughs here at Twitch, but I haven't actually seen in a while, so I don't know if he's still dedicated to that or not. But I know that I've outlasted most of the folks at RPGM Mag. Like Sir Rosser. Sir Rosser is trying to get back into making Let's Plays or streams, but he's been MIA for a long time. Oh crap, did the string go out? Dang it, Twitch. Well, I might have to upload a backup copy then. We'll see how that goes. I'll probably I'll probably cut whatever was missing and upload that separately. So, whenever I do cut this here at Twitch, that's what I'll do. There's gonna be a little upload filling in the blank space. At YouTube, I'll probably cut this and upload it whole rather than use the Twitch export feature. It's going to be difficult not recording any content for a while. That's another reason why I decided to come back to stream this final playthrough here at Twitch. Because before this playthrough, the last playthrough I recorded was Sergeant Squidly at YouTube. And that ended... let me double check that. I want to say May? Last episode... No, gosh, no. April 5th. So it had been 2 or 3 months since I actually recorded anything. And I was kind of missing it. I needed to be able to record something else. So now that I'm ending my streams here, not going to record anything until the end of Mana Finder, when I do New Game Plus of that. That's going to be December. I'm going to miss making recordings. Let's see. Another 4 minutes in this song, which is this song, and then we go to the end where I will close things out. Okay, I take that back. 3 minutes left of this song. What can we reminisce about in 3 more minutes? What is another of my favorite playthroughs I did? Looking through my list. Phantasy Star 4, not really one of my favorite playthroughs, but also one of those playthroughs that I exported directly to YouTube. Would love to go back and re-edit that, because that game has random encounters out the wazoo, and that really needed editing. Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap, one of my favorite indie games. Little Metroidvania. Again, with a transformation theme. Your first transformation is a fire-breathing lizard. That's fun. Banjo-Kazooie! How could I forget Banjo-Kazooie? My favorite game of all time. And that's also another playthrough. Maybe I should have waited a little bit before streaming. Not that it's a bad playthrough. I think it's a great playthrough. I think that's one of my best playthroughs I've done. But it's not in HD. Should have waited it for me to be recording that in HD, perhaps. But had a lot of fun with that game. Went for 100%. Had some fun with various cheats. Click Clock Wood was a nightmare, but it was an entertaining nightmare. Also, yeah, it was a Nintendo 64 version, so HD wasn't necessarily that necessary. New Super's Lucky's Tale, underrated indie game. It's not the hardest platformer, but it's a really fun platformer. If you overlooked it, stop it. Play the game. Don't go in expecting a challenging game, but just enjoy it for just being a colorful romp through a playful platformer. Gato Roboto, very unique indie game. Metroidvania with a cat in a mech. Stitched, very interesting horror game. Really wish that had gotten some attention at YouTube. It was a Halloween playthrough for YouTube, and barely anybody watched it. Go watch it. And I guess we're gonna end that here. Technically, you have 3 minutes and 32 seconds left, but no, I think I need to close things out. This is the end of my Twitch streams, the end of my streams in general. I don't think I'll even do a birthday stream. I mean, possibly a birthday stream could happen, but maybe not. No, I think I'll be satisfied just making regular Let's Plays. If I did do a birthday stream, though, it would be at YouTube, since that's where most of my viewership tends to be. Try to recapture that magic from my early days streaming at YouTube. Oh boy, definitely been through a lot here at Twitch. Started out as Dragon the Raccoon Dragon, briefly switched to Dragon the Skunk Dragon before finally coming out and being Erika the Skunk Dragon, before going back to being a Raccoon Dragon, and now I'm a pig. How in the world did that happen? Oh yeah, and the name change. Going from being Erika Fuzzbottom to Cat the Pig. Catherine. A name that I can truly call my own. And not just stolen from the Pokemon Gym Leader. You know what, Wario Land? You're right. That would be a good way to end this stream. Goodbye, everyone! I'll see you all at YouTube, where the journey continues, as soon as I'm done editing some previous streams. And, as usual, whether I'm at Twitch or YouTube, streaming or not, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh gosh, this really is the moment that I'm ending things. What a moment. It's definitely bittersweet.